welcome back to What I Crush. I know we've had a couple of weeks off, and I'm sure all of you have just been dying to reconnect with us. And today, I've got a special treat with you, or for you. I've got Mr. Craig Zuber, who is a MAPS executive and head coach. Craig and I started with MAPS around the same time, and have kind of come up in the coaching industry together, right, Craig? He's way smarter than me, so you all will see that today. But Craig, first off, just thank you for the investment in time, and I'm excited to jump right into this. So the title today is Transforming Heisman level salespeople into business owners. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, Jordan, thanks for having me. And the audience needs to know you are way smarter than I am. So let's just start there. As far as Heisman Award winning salespeople, so that means great. You're really, really great at being a salesperson, and you may have challenges taking who you are and what you know and turning that into a system so that you could start leading through others.
Okay.
That's what I work on.
Okay, so you may be really, so essentially it's how do I take what I've built off of, in most cases, my personality and build that into a system? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. Yep. So, it's one thing to say, especially the high performers, they move fast. They're really, really good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now be able to walk me through exactly what you do so you can get other people to do it as well is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's the unconscious piece of some of those things that you're not aware that you do on a daily or weekly basis that brings so much value to others that could help propel them forward.
Okay, so I think you just touched on something that's really important, because a lot of us have been doing what we've been doing for so long that we are unconsciously competent at it, meaning we are not conscious of our skill, right? We're not aware of what we even do. So is part of the transition of going from salesperson to business owner pulling that out of them? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. What makes you great? And when you get them to reflect on that, right? Most of the time it's going to start because they're great salespeople. Those are the best salespeople. So they start with justification and attempt to sell themselves and you on how what they do is unique. Therefore, it's not transcribable into another person.
Got
Right?
it.
That's usually what happens first. And
Okay.
so then it's just making them aware that you are really great at what you do. And there are these intricacies that you do every day that you're not aware of, right? Like when I ask somebody, walk me through what the drive was like from your office to your house that you've done 300,000 times, you can't tell me what actually happened there. Okay. Now, if I asked you to take a 15-year-old daughter and walk her through that exact same experience of what you got out of that, you're going to get a completely different perspective. This is what I saw you do. You slowed down when this happened. You rolled through a stop sign, Dad, and you weren't supposed to do that. You turned your blinker on for X amount of time. Like everything that you are unconsciously aware of, you put somebody. I'm using my daughter as an example, being 15 years old now. But truly the transparency about all of this is being able to walk a 6-year-old through it. And then the highest level is can the 6-year-old go then teach another 6-year-old what you just did? Because now you can scale it to the largest level.
Okay. So I love what you just said. So to unpack that a little bit, like if you were to ask me about my drive into work today, I'm basically going to say I took a left, I took a right, and I took a left, and I was here in about 7 minutes. And yet, if I were either riding with I have a 7-year-old, and we're explaining to her on the journey, okay, we're going to come up to a stoplight. I'm going to stop and hit my blinker. So what you're saying is that's where the unconscious becomes conscious, is having to slow down and articulate it step by step. Is that what you mean by that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And like high performers, professionals, they're watching film for that specific reason.
Mm.
What can they see that nobody else could see that makes a dramatic impact when they're running a route? That's what it is.
Right. Gary talks about this, and I don't remember what season of Think Like a CEO it was on, but he talks about how Keller Williams started to be scalable when he essentially paid somebody to just write a documentary or film a documentary on him, right? They just followed him around and documented everything that he did. Um, and essentially that's, I think, the process that you say you put people through. So Craig, how do you do that? I mean, these are professionals, right? They're busy. And that's probably I'm just guessing, the second thing you hear is, after I'm so unique, it's, I don't have time, or I'm too busy to do that. So how do you work through those challenges?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, most of the time they're stuck somewhere, right? They're stuck. There's a little bit of frustration. Oh my gosh, it's easier if I just do this myself. Right. Like they're looking for all those paths. It's easier to be busy. In their mind, it is. It's easier to be busy. I'm like, unfortunately, even being busy and moving fast means you still got to take yourself with you, right? Like sometimes they don't want to actually look internal to see what's actually going on. So it's the overriding impact of what decisions that they're making, the choices that they've made, and keep bringing those back. Those choices have gotten you to where you're at, and what got you to where you're at won't get you to where you're going. So it's bringing back, like, every time that you made that decision to do something for somebody else, right? Were you empowering them, or were you enabling them? And getting an understanding, right? Like, because again, I don't put anybody in my world that needs to be sped up. Every one of them needs to be slowed down. Every single one. Right? But that's also knowing who your client is, right? Like, so I'm clear now that every single one of my clients would absolutely, without a doubt, be successful without me. And when you're looking at playing the bigger game, right? And looking at, well, dependent versus independent versus interdependent, that's where the 10X comes into play, right? The investment in humans. Interdependent means together we could accomplish 10 times more.
So, and it kind of follows the check mark, right? Like we've all heard this before, that when you decide to go from a salesperson to a business, it's like building out a check mark, that your business might actually move backwards. That's the slowing down part. But then the 10X shows up, that when you're so much higher than you were when you originally started. I love that. So Zuber, I would.
We hear, Jordan, a lot of times. You know how many times that we've all in this call probably all heard, you got to give up to go up. But now walk me through what that actually means, and what you're willing to actually sacrifice in order to go up is different, right? We spend more time based on where we're going versus what we're willing to sacrifice in the struggle, and it's the struggle that's going to determine how amazing the journey is, not how easy it is. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And
really, high performers aren't looking for easy. At least I haven't met one that is, right? Now they create unnecessary chaos, right? And they do that. They don't get out of the way enough. But that's just making them aware of it, though. Like, awareness is the first step to change. Well, some of these high performers have never been stopped in their tracks. They have to reflect long enough to be able to make the change. And it's because they're really good at selling. And 99.9% of the people around them believe it. And unfortunately, we partner together because I don't. You need to convince yourself, not me. You need to convince yourself. I'll while you're listening to yourself, I'll listen in and then help you make a few different decisions.
Yeah, I love that. I remember one of the original definitions. I think it was Tony DeCello, who was a great mentor to you and I when, originally we started our first cadre group. And he said that coaching is their opportunity to have their internal dialogue externally with another person, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, so Zuber, when you're looking at, okay, so changing somebody from a high-powered or a Heisman salesperson to a business owner first starts with bottling up and documenting what it is that actually makes them awesome. Why do you start there? Why is that the first start or the first step in this process?
Because that's also empowerment for them. You start their genius zone, and if you stayed in your genius zone, how much energy, like, again, impact, effort, energy, willpower, how much of that is taken away from you when you're there? Oh my gosh, all this stuff happens. When you're out, that's when blah happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it just the constant reflection of, well, there's no way I'm able to stay there. I'm like, okay, remember, especially high performers, but this is for everyone, right? We all have a story. And until you divorce the story to be able to marry the truth, nothing changes. So I get you to go back and reflect on the story and basically prove that story is true and it's serving you, and looking and evaluating it from, this isn't a right or wrong, right? Like that whole certainty aspect gets us in trouble. Like, what are you so certain about that's preventing growth? It has nothing to do about being right or wrong. Is it serving you? Is it not serving you? How so? And walk me through it.
Yeah, I hope everybody just wrote down that question, because that's a thinking time question right there. Say it again. What are you so certain about?
What are you so certain about that's hindering growth, right? Like, we live in, sometimes we get just so, like, the point far aspect of bold, like you tell yourself a story, then you're looking for evidence and you're believing all that's true. Well, what story are you telling yourself that's either helping you, hurting you, serving you, not serving you? And it's just it's slowing down to be able to see that process.
Yeah. And when people ask me the question, what's the difference between a realtor and a business owner and a salesperson, or a business owner and a realtor, I think it's real easy that a business owner differentiates between themselves and the product, right? Like, what we sell is service, and a business owner looks at the distribution of that service being done through leverage, people, processes, tools. A realtor does not differentiate. I am the product. I'm selling me. And that right there is the lid that gets put on so many careers, because they're limited by their own amount of time. They can't multiply because, to your point, they're so unique. So let's shift gears here, Zuber, because, in my coaching career, you've been one of the greatest teachers. And one of the things that I learned from you is so we get this documented. They know that they're going to become a business owner. Now they've got to get into hire, right? And I remember having conversations with you about struggles that people I coach are having in the field of hiring. And you would always ask me, like, do they know what they're looking for? And I would say, yeah, they're looking for an executive assistant. And you would go into this description of like give them the analogy of the football player. I love this. Everybody should pay attention to what he's about to say.
Well, clear and specific to me sounds like you're looking for a 6'4", 215-pound wide receiver that runs a 4.2 40, is impeccable at running routes, has a 4-foot vertical leap, and never drops a pass when there's 100,000 fans in the stands. That's specific. If you're not specific, then what you get is a football player. See, most of them are asking for football players, and then they're frustrated that the 6'4", 215-pound wide receiver that runs a 4.2 40, runs amazing routes, has soft hands, and never drops a pass, doesn't show up.
Right. So when you're looking for people, part of being a business owner is that you have to be clear and specific around who you're looking for, right? Down to, in your case, how high they can jump, right?
Yes. Yeah. Those are constant evaluations in the professional and even collegiate league, for that matter, right? Like it's the tiny little difference of what matters most, and not just what matters most in your organization, right? What works for the Pittsburgh Steelers may not work for the Niners. Nothing works for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm clear. I've been a fan my entire life. I wish they'd just blow the whole thing up and change it. However, oh my gosh, my buddy said that such and such is great and I should bring him aboard. Well, are you running the same business that your friend is? You have the same culture? You have the same systems? Do you have the same expectations? Do you have the same, right, like delivery of the Disney experience or things of that nature? Because if somebody has that background, that may be awesome for one and not the other. Like Gary Keller says it a lot. Like, I wish you guys would stop listening to yourselves and actually start listening to me every now and then, right? And it's because of those reasons. You don't get enough of the specifics or enough of the depth of the truth. And then you're looking for a simpler way. And so then you skip steps and then you justify it by X, Y, and Z to make yourself feel better. And it's not that it's about right or wrong. That's at that moment in time is making sure that you're evaluating that's actually true.
Right. And when you're looking at this specifically around hiring, I like your analogy way better. The one that I use is if I have a dog and God forbid I lost my dog, I don't go around my neighborhood just stapling up flyers saying lost dog. It's going to say she's a 3-year-old yellow lab named Abby who walks with a limp, right? I'm going to make it so specific and clear that anybody that sees that dog automatically knows that's what I'm looking for. And I think the other thing around hiring that people like along that context of understand the difference between traits and tasks. You're looking to hire a mindset, and what you're looking to do, what you're talking about is, I need a description of your mindset or of the mindset that you're looking for in this position. I need the traits, right?
Traits, absolutely, right? And there's, again, this is called reflection, right? So take yourself out of the context potentially of real estate, right? So in that case, when I'm looking at like operations, what happens is we overuse words. And sometimes there's this word called director of operations, or that's 2 words put together that I can't figure out for the life of me, what that means, except for what it means to me. Okay. To me, when somebody walks through the room and you can tell the difference between the director of operations and the CEO, you probably have the wrong person.
Say that one more time. You
can tell the difference between the CEO and the director of operations. There's a good chance you have the wrong person, right? Like, and if it's tough for you to get your head wrapped around it, that's where analogies come into play, right? So for instance, I would be looking for an event coordinator that can handle 5 bridezillas on a Saturday at 5 different locations with over 200 people. And yes, as far as the brides are concerned, the whole thing is going off like a hitch. That's my definition of a director of operations.
Yeah, and I want to point something out here too that, you know, you've really taught me is if you're going to be great at coaching people, guys, this is something I picked up directly from him, is that we have to make sure that our definition of words are the same. And that's something that he does really well. Like I remember we were talking because Craig and I, we mastermind still to this day once a week. And we were talking about lead generation. And he said, well, what's your definition of lead generation? And I gave it to him at the time. And he goes, well, that's funny. My definition is that when you generate a lead, like you say you're doing all this lead generation, did you generate a lead? Oh, you didn't generate a lead? Oh, well, then you didn't lead generate. Like, let's get really clear about what a lead is, how you actually generate a lead. And I think that a lot of organizations and people, if we just slowed down a little bit and made sure that we have the same definitions of words, as simplistic as that sounds, we would be able to move a lot faster.
That's it. And again, it's not because it's my definition. It's because when I share what mine is, and then you share what yours is, then we can directly see whether we're a match or like I need to tweak what their definition is, or I need to tweak mine for them so that we get on the same page. Right? Like there's too much assumptions in business. That's what happens. You know, in the whole Heisman award-winning salesperson transitioning, it's the assumptive piece that gets us in trouble, right? I assume that everybody knows that the market is doing great, right? Well, how's that helping you? How is that story like? Is that serving you or is it hindering you, right? Like when I've asked people that are on a call like this, you know exactly what's going on in the insurance market or in the insurance industry right now, and right. And I'm like, so you have no idea what's going on in the industry right now in insurance, but you expect every person in the neighborhood to know what's going on in real estate. Weird. Right? That's called slowing down to be able to figure out what you're saying and why you're saying it matters so much. It's always coming from, you know, like the contribution of how, people don't know how, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, but what are you doing to connect with these people? And it's like the challenge with a lot of these organizations is it's like disruptive abundance. It's endless pursuit of more instead of the quality of the relationships and the experiences that you're creating. And yeah, that destructive abundance gets in the way, and all of a sudden everybody's mad.
Yep. So speaking of connections, Zuber, one other thing that you say often is that you can't influence someone unless you are influenced by them. And the first time you said that, I was like scratching my head. I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? And then I thought about it and it kind of, you know, made sense. So unpack that for us. Influenced by them before we can influence them. What does that mean?
You're listening to same thing, those characteristics, those patterns, those high level of achievement and what matters most to them, and all, like you're listening to that and like, you know, I gave up X and I'm listening to the struggle and this is what I'm doing it for. That can come in any kind of different way, but man, when you're listening to it and going, wow, like I just got moved by that, right? Like and when emotions are high, judgment's low. So when you're in salesperson mode and you got this high emotion, you can't hear those things.
Right.
You can't hear the struggle. You can't hear the, the expectation is simple in our organization. We just expect you to work half days for the first 6 months when you're in our organization. That's it. They're like, wow, I could do that. I'm like, right. My definition of a half day is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. straight for the first 6 days a week for the first 6 months. That's my definition. Again, what is yours? And let's see if we're a match. Right? Like salespeople get sold the easiest. That's why they don't follow a process. So they can go sell themselves on why this is going to be a great fit by proving concept that it will. This is somebody that ripped the phone out of my hand and wasn't afraid to have 100 conversations a day. This is somebody that already has 92 on average conversations a day, not somebody that said, yeah, I believe I can do that. Great, sign here. It's if you're looking for, again, there's a difference between looking for a high performer, a Heisman Award performer versus a salesperson.
Mhm.
Heisman or not. I mean, are you looking for the best of the best? And it doesn't matter their age. Show me what they've accomplished. Show me the medals. Show me what they've fought for. Tell me that they're frustrated at number. They're currently number 2, and they're doing whatever it takes ethically to get to number 1. Show me how bad that they care and the words they're using to describe it. Right? And again, the way we look at like the real, it's not, am I thinking like a realtor? It's you're thinking like there's a difference between being self-employed and then a self-employed business owner and a business owner. And it's the thinking behind it, right? And and most of the time the lid that gets put on an organization is because they look at humans as or hires as an expense. The minute that you look at a hire as an expense, you just put the lid on the organization. When you look at a hire as an investment, it changes the game. All right. And so it's kind of simple. What do you do to take a Heisman Award winning salespeople and transform them into a business owner? Well, as a partner, you look through the eyes of an investor on what are the things that would you invest in that organization yourself? If not, are you challenging them about that thought process? Is it, can you leave for a week and come back and you're really needed? Right. And then understanding like in life, it's okay to be needed, but like how that may be hindering you because you might not be letting go of specific things. Right. Like, and again, the definition of a business owner is different for each person. So you got to get clear and specific on what that means. Can you leave for 1 year and come back and it's operating as good or better than when you left it?
I don't think a lot of people could say that that is the case, that they would be able to do that. And the complete lack of patience, I believe, is the leading cause of the very thing that you're talking about not coming to fruition, because they don't take the time to slow down and truly invest. Like they've gotten into this relationship, but then they don't nurture it, they don't grow it, or they notice that the relationship isn't working, and then they start saying things like, well, we're better off with them than we are without them. And now, instead of, I don't even like calling it a 30-60-90. In my opinion, it's the 30-30-30. You get hired every 30 days. And I don't find very many teams that actually follow that model, that quick to fire, right?
No, because they justify them, right? And again, 90% of the training is done when you hire the right person for the role. 90%.
Yep.
Now that's not 100 though. That's different, right? If you look at a business day and you only used 8 hours, well, 10% is still 48 minutes. Be clear that this isn't grip it and rip it. If you're looking for somebody at that level, you may consider adding a 0 to your job offering.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, I also find, to your point, that they're just not willing to have enough conversations to find the person, or, people overestimate how good a coaches they actually are. You know, they think that they can bring people into their organizations and, you know, oh, they're not motivated, but if they hang out with me, if I train and coach them, it's like, to your point earlier, find the people that are already, you don't need to wind up. They're already wound, and figure out how you can get them into your world. That's how you become a business owner, not a Heisman salesperson, because now you're able to multiply yourself. So Zuber, we're at the top of the hour here. What I Crush is 30 minutes. Any last words of wisdom or anything that you would leave with our audience here today?
I would just challenge you to look through the eyes, like each thing that you're doing is through the eyes of an investor. And then, you know, Gary uses over and over, like the thinking globally, right? Because small thinking translates to small hires. So when you're thinking globally, it forces you to think about a person or the characteristics of that human at a different level. And, you know, just stop justifying. Like, just be real and authentic about what you are great at. Because, you know, if you stay in your genius zone, like that's the whole thing, is and you're living frugally enough, and you're setting aside enough of those profits to be able to invest in the next human. Right? That's what I heard Gary saying over and over, is that, you know, he's done really well in the stock market. He's done really well in investing in real estate. And man, all of his wealth really comes from investing in people. That's where 10X comes in.
Yep. I love it.
Just get more clear and specific. That's it. Getting clear and specific is hard, right? Hard decisions, easy life. But man, you spend more time getting clear and clear, everything starts to fall into place.
Awesome. Well, Craig, thank you for being here today and for pouring into all of us. And as always, everyone, we will have this up on our site, whaticrush.com, in the next 24 to 48 hours. We're also posting this now to our YouTube channel, so check us out there. And we will be back next week where we talk to Laura Hyatt, who is the Director of Operations, who is also coached by Mr. Zuber's wife, bride, Nicole. And we're going to be talking about crushing the operations of a high-performing team. So thank you all for being here. Craig, thank you for your time. We'll catch you guys all in the next episode. Hi there, and thank you for watching What I Crush. And if you're enjoying what we're putting down, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. Don't forget the bell button, and check us out at whaticrush.com. We'll see you on our next episode.